In this pod, we're going to talk through what you need to do to answer question 1 on paper 1 and 2 of the OCR English Language GCSE. Each paper has 4 reading questions and a choice of 2 writing questions. Paper 1 focuses on non-fiction texts, texts that are factual or informative. One will be from the 19th century and one from the 20th century. Paper 2 looks at fiction texts from the 20th and 21st centuries. Some people find it hard to revise for English language GCSEs, but one of the things that will help you the most is knowing the exam inside out. That means knowing what assessment objectives are being examined for each question and what each question is asking you to do. Learn this before you go into the exam and you're off to a really good start. So for question 1, you're being assessed on AO1. That's your ability to identify and interpret explicit and implicit information and ideas. That means that the examiner wants you to find key pieces of information and to show you understand ideas that are presented in the texts. This question is worth 4 marks in total, but it's often split up into 2 or 3 smaller questions. It's sort of designed as a warm-up for the rest of the paper. You're not required to analyse language or go into too much detail here. Look at how many marks each question is worth as an indication of how much detail is needed. If it's 1 mark, make 1 comment. If it's 2, you need to write 2 things. It might sound obvious, but it's really important to read the entire text before you try to answer questions on it. In the past, some students have just read the lines referred to in the question, and as a result, they've misinterpreted the texts and lost the marks. Let's look at an example. Imagine that the question asks you to identify 2 phrases from lines 1 to 12 that tell you how the narrator is feeling. So before you start thinking about your answer, you should highlight or underline key words in the question. For example, here you would pick out 2 phrases and how the narrator is feeling. You should also pay close attention to the line numbers the question is asking you about. If your answer comes from outside of these lines, you won't be awarded the marks. Some people find it useful to mark on the texts and box off the section that they should be looking at to make sure that they don't panic and make a mistake. So after you feel that you understand what the question is asking you, skim read the text to find your answers. Don't be afraid to copy out well-selected quotations, but be careful you don't copy out the entire sentence or paragraph. That doesn't show the examiner that you can select the information you need. You need to be more selective. Choose phrases that you think directly answer the question. The second part to question 1 will often test your ability to interpret information. When the question uses the command word explain, it means that the examiner wants you to put your answer in your own words to show you understand the text and the question fully. You won't be allowed a quotation on its own to answer this question. For example, you may be asked to explain why the writer describes the children's cries as desperate. Here, you might want to think about what's suggested by the word desperate and how that's an appropriate way to describe crying children. Okay, that's about it for this question. It can come in 2 parts or 3, but the skills being tested are the same: your ability to select evidence from the text and interpret information. We'll leave you with 3 top tips. Remember to read through the whole text before you begin your answer. Always read the question carefully to make sure you fully understand what it's asking you. And if you see the word explain in question 1, it means you need to put your answer into your own words. Good luck!